Hello and welcome to a short video for parents on how to help your students as they are working remotely from home. Where can I find a few activities for my students to do while they're out of school? Let me show you how to do that. Well, if I'm going into the program, I'm going to ask my student what's their username and password to get to this program. Some might have a username and password. Others might get through a district site. So you have to find out where do they access their science program. Once you're in there, go into the program by either clicking this tile right here that says InspireScience, or whatever their course is labeled, or the launch. Either way, it'll take you to the same place. I'm going to click on one of those locations. And if you're a K through 5 student, you're going to see a location called Lessons over here. That's where you want to be. So I'm going to click on Lessons, and it will default in Lessons when you log in. Okay. Over here, I see an icon on my left-hand side. Now here, I will find a digital table of contents. And within this table of contents, of file folders, if you will, there are locations that will have some activities that you can do with your students. So let's take a look at just a few for this short video. If I go to Program Resources will give me a file folder called Learning Resources. And here I have the student editions, and I also have something called the Science and Engineering Practices Handbook. This is a really nice resource that goes over a lot of science basics, everything from measurement to data collection to what scientists do, what engineers do. How's it different? What's the difference between a scientist and an engineer? Have you ever thought about that? And then practices that good scientists have in their classrooms and in the real world, like they develop and use models. They plan and carry out investigations. This is pretty easy to understand stuff, things that you've learned in the past. As you scroll down here, it's going to talk about analyzing and interpreting data and just simple things, basic fundamentals that every good scientist should have. And I think this would be a great place to start. Let me show you another location. So this is the Science and Engineering Practices Handbook, and I found it in my Program Resources. Now I could just go into a module. Let's go into a module, Forces in Motion, or it could be any module that your student happens to be in school. It's up to you. I go into a module, and I'll have some file folders here under my module folder. And one of them is the STEM module project. Let me open up that folder. And one of the resources here is called Investigator. This one is Designing Driverless Cars. Now that sounds like pretty high interest science, cool science, things that your students might be interested in. So here there's a magazine-style article talking about driverless cars. We hear these things are coming. We're hearing about Amazon and maybe some taxis being driverless. How far away is this? Is this doable? What will those cars look like? At the end of each one of these magazine-style articles is a nice little activity. It says make a poster that shows how you would design a driverless car. Then write a paragraph explaining how your car is different than cars today. Great activity to do from home. So think of using that, Investigator articles. And the last location I'm going to share with you is going down to the lesson level. So where have we been? We've been at the Program Resources level, we've been at the module level, and now we're going to dig into a specific lesson. And here we'll have file folders as well. And one of those folders will say Explain and Explore. Here we have a lab here at Explore. And when we go to Explain, we have information in this area of Forces in Motion chunked into nice little tidbits of information that we can go over with our students at home. So within this content might be some interactives, might be a video. Here we have Forces in Motion. I could click on through the next page by clicking on this arrow. Let's go into page 2. We can go through this. It's easy to understand, easy to digest information about Forces in Motion, and then opportunities for response that your students can save there. So those are 3 locations I would suggest you use when going into the program on the student side. Just remember, the first thing you've got to ask them is how do they access their science program? How do they get to a page that looks like this? If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local McGraw-Hill representative.